Back Pain, the Primal Posture Solution is funded in part by Deborah E. Atticott, Ann Wojcinski, William Fenwick, Kathleen McCarthy, and Rick and Roberta Rudman. They do backbreaking work day after day, sit hour upon hour, carry heavy loads on their heads. Yet some of the world's populations have very little back pain. Even our own ancestors didn't suffer the way we do. So what did they know that we have forgotten? Why are so many of us today living with back pain?
I heard a pop on my lower right-hand side of my back, and I fell backwards, and it just got worse and worse progressively.
Well, I always had the marvelous opportunity to help people get better, but the Gokhale method has helped me find a way to help them help themselves.
I was kind of living on pain pills just to get through the day, and that's not a good way to go through life.
Well, the Gokhale method is non-invasive. It's not dangerous in almost any sense that we believe, and for most patients, it's clear that the opposite is true with surgery.
And it all came to a head on a ski trip where I ruptured 2 discs and saw a neurosurgeon who recommended that I had my spine fused together, 3 of my vertebrae. And I had the, sciatica all down my leg, numbness in my right leg, and I couldn't lift my foot or wiggle my toes.
I've dealt with back pain on and off for the last 30 years or so, and mostly on and off. And I've also come from a family that has a history of back pain.
Back pain has become an epidemic in our culture. Almost everyone, 85% of us, will have back pain at some point. So did I. My name is Esther Gokhale, and I created the Gokhale method to get to the root of most people's back pain. We blame a lot of things for our pain: sedentary living, age, stress, height, weight, genetics. But the real problem is that we've forgotten how to use our bodies. The good news is that we can learn again, no matter what our age or condition. In the following program, you are going to meet 4 people who overcame their back pain. They did it without drugs or surgery and with less time and effort than they thought possible. These simple techniques can work for you too. Welcome to Back Pain, the Primal Posture Solution.
I think my back problems were from a combination of genetics, football, automobile accidents, weightlifting, a lot of things that did damage to my back. And I had had 2 surgeries and was facing a 3rd surgery, which was going to involve extensive fusion. And I was desperate at that point to find an alternative because I was not ready to go back in and have a 3rd surgery.
One of the first things I taught Michael to do was stretch sitting. Stretch sitting makes sitting comfortable and something that's very good for you instead of something that's bad for you. So what you need is a backrest, something that is going to meet you mid-back, and it needs to have some friction on it. So a folded flannel sheet or towel, place something like that would work. You could also use one of our stretch sit cushions, which has these friction nubs, so that they hold your back elongated in traction. So we're going to use the stretch sit cushions and go ahead and have a seat. Put your bottom well back in the chair, but not so far back that you're creating a sway in your back. Next, we're going to hinge away from the backrest, just enough to clear the nubs. So Jessica, you don't need to come forward that much, just a little bit so that you're away from the nubs. And now we're going to lengthen our spines in 2 separate ways. So the first way, we're going to place our ribs, our fists right at the bottom of our rib cage and kind of curve forward a little bit. So you are away from the backrest, curving forward. It may feel like a mini crunch. And now you're going to hold on to the side bars of the chair with your elbows slightly bent so you have good leverage. And now leaving the bottom of you in the chair, you're going to gently push the top of you away from the bottom of you. So you're further elongating your spine. That's marvelous. Now you're going to hinge back from the hips, maintaining that forward cant, maintaining the length in your back until you hit the nubs. And now you let go. And now the nubs hold you in this elongated position. Excellent. Let's do that again. So we're hinging away from the nubs, and now we're curving forward with the rib cage. Yeah. And now you grasp the bars, and you gently push down, but you want to be careful not to stick your ribs out. If that was your old habit of having good posture that keeps propping up, and you want to maintain this forward cant, and then hinge back. And Jessica, you want to be careful that as you're hinging back, you don't let go of that forward cant of the rib cage. So you are curving forward, you're maintaining that as you hinge forward. And then only after you've attached yourself to the nubs, then you let go and you can just relax. Now, if you find that you're leaning too far back, Eric, you might be leaning a bit far back. So if you come away, let's engineer this again. So some chairs, most chairs, need to be a little bit engineered to work. And so here we've made this a bit more vertical for you. So go ahead and put your bottom back, and now elongate by curving forward, pushing down, attach firmly, and let go. Got a pinch of skin that is proof that you have really elongated your back. Excellent. And now you can feel that your back has a little bit of a stretch. And this is extremely helpful for the discs because they are no longer compressed. They've got some room and they can actually rehydrate. It's also helpful for the nerves that exit between the pairs of vertebrae, and even for the bones because undue compression causes arthritic change. So you have done all kinds of healthful things for your spine as you're sitting. Now we're going to set our shoulders further back than they are perhaps used to being. So many of us slump, and some common ways that we address this slumping is to kind of pull the shoulders back. And that doesn't last very long, and it's just as well because it is not a very healthful way to fix your slumping shoulders. You're using your rhomboids, and then where they attach to the upper back gets sore if you keep doing that. So a better way is to do a shoulder roll. You start with one shoulder at a time, and you go a little forward with just the shoulder and a little bit up and back. Wonderful. You can imagine that you have a kind of gear mechanism in your shoulder joint, and it's as though you are ratcheting the soft tissue of the shoulders back a notch. It feels like that. And do the other shoulder, little forward, little up, lots back, and you're trying to isolate this movement to the shoulder. You want to be careful that you're not sticking out your chest as you pull your shoulders back in place. So just the shoulders move back. Great. And then the next piece we'd like to improve is the neck. And the neck also wants to have good length. And there are several ways to do this. You could pull a clump of hair with the hand and gently move your neck tall and your head kind of up and back. And let me help you, Michael, with that. So the direction you're going in is back, and you want your chin to relax down. That's it. So you're going back and up and relax as much as you can. And so you are getting all these muscles kind of elongated and your spine elongated, and then you relax. Nice. Other ways to do this are to grab the head with your hands, and you can also imagine that you have a weight on your head, or you have a helium balloon in your head and you're relaxing all the muscles around your neck. So any of these ways will help get you towards a longer, healthier neck, where once again the discs have room and the nerves and the bones as well. Let's review. Use an appropriate support mid-back level. Place your bottom well back in the chair. Hinge away from the backrest. Curve the rib cage forward. Grasp the chair someplace and further elongate your spine. Hinge back from your hip joint. Attach yourself to the backrest and relax. Roll one shoulder open at a time and elongate the neck and relax. One way to understand what we've just done is to look at these two spines. This one comes from a modern anatomy book and shows the S-shaped spine we've come to believe is natural. This one comes from an anatomy book published in 1911 and shows a very different spine. J-spine, this is what I teach. And this is the shape that you find in young children and our ancestors and people in non-industrial cultures today. This one makes a whole lot more sense than this one does. For example, you see that the intervertebral disc spaces are cylindrical, which makes sense because those discs are cylindrical, so that's a good fit, as opposed to here, where these discs are getting squished. So no wonder so many of us have degenerative disc disease if this is what we're doing all day. This also makes a whole lot more sense from the point of view of the stacking of the bones. Here they're well stacked, and here they're edgewise compressed, and that causes arthritic changes. So what we've done with stretch sitting is we've placed this cushion mid-back somewhere here, and all of these muscles down below are getting a sustained stretch, and you're restoring normal architecture to your bones and your discs. So another technique that was very helpful to Michael early on was the inner corset. The inner corset consists of a set of muscles deep in the abdomen and deep in the back. And all together, they form a kind of brace that makes you a little bit slenderer, and since the stuff has to go someplace, makes you taller. The way you locate the inner corset muscles is to start with a good baseline position and take a baseline reading of the groove on your spine. So you can go with your hands back and forth and up and down to get a sense of the curve there. And you want to start with the shallow curve. Now, if you have an extra curve, you might have to rotate your ribcage forward, Allison. So if you find that the groove is extra deep, just keep pushing back, and you want to push back with the fists on the bones of your ribs, not below. That's it. And then you can check again to see if it flattened out in the back. Mm-hmm. Nice. So once you've got a good baseline, now you want to imagine two things. You can imagine a high shelf that you're reaching up for, and imagine that there's a bar at about chest height that you're kind of coming up and around. And so go ahead and reach up and around this bar, and then check with your hand that your groove, if anything, has become a little bit shallower. You don't want it to get deeper as you reach up. And once you've determined it is a good curve here, you can take the other arm up as well and reach up, 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 and that recruits your muscles. And you just want to make sure that you are truly curving forward as you reach up. And you also want to make sure that as you've done this, you haven't tucked your pelvis in the process. So start over, and the rest of you can bring your arms down. So we're going to start with a good baseline position, and then reach up. Imagine this shelf, and I'm going to check your spine for you. Yes, anchor without shifting your pelvis at all. Good. Coming up and around this bar, flattening out the curves in your low back. And now, once you've found all of this muscle, you keep it engaged, and then you lower your arms, and you've got your inner corset in place. And now you can do a more robust shoulder roll, and you're going to find that it doesn't throw the rib cage out of whack. Yeah? So you've got it kind of braced around here and it's more stable. And this is really fantastic for an active lifestyle. It protects you from wear and tear. You know, it keeps you a little bit slender. It keeps the pressure off the discs and the nerves and the bones as well. And so you are protected through your activities. All right, well, let's put it to a challenge. Once you've got it there, try jogging around a little bit, bouncing up and down, and see if you can feel that your muscles are actually supporting your structure and not letting your discs and nerves take the brunt of the impact. Wonderful. Let's review. Begin with a good baseline standing position. Take a reading of the baseline groove over the midline of your spine. Reach up for an imaginary shelf and up and over an imaginary bar at chest height. Once you've determined that you are not deepening the groove, reach up with the other arm and engage all the muscles you can find around your abdomen. Keep those muscles engaged and lower your arms. Roll open one shoulder, roll open the other shoulder, elongate the back of the neck, relax everywhere except in the muscles that constitute your inner corset.
Today I've regained my life back. I don't use a cane. I haven't taken a pain pill in a year. I'm back doing things physically. I'm in the gym, I'm in the swimming pool, and I'm traveling, and I'm able to do a lot of things that I had pretty much thought I'd never do again.
The techniques that helped Michael are second nature to people in non-industrial cultures. Our ancestors used them, even babies come by them naturally. In my own struggles with back pain, I was convinced that the solution had to be structural. I had taken anatomy at Stanford Medical School and been especially inspired by the French technique aplomb. I ended up traveling in Africa, Asia, and South America, photographing, mimicking, and interviewing people without back pain. I was enchanted by their beauty and dignity. The Gokhale method is based on the kinesthetic wisdom that these people have kept intact through thousands of generations.
I took her class mainly because I was curious about it for myself and for my patients, and because I was hearing what she had to say. It made physiological, anatomical sense. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take it and see for myself. And it was amazing.
It started with bending over and picking up one of the babies in my family. When I fell backwards on the kitchen floor, I was led to the bed where I spent the next few weeks in bed just waiting for my back to get better, thinking, oh, I'll bounce back. I just injured it, and that didn't happen. I would turn over or be turned over and then fed like juices through a straw because I didn't even have enough back muscle to pull myself up.
Muscle spasms can be really dramatic. They can be severe and painful. And if people are not used to them, then they're frightened, and that in turn causes the spasms to increase, and you can have a downward spiral that actually compresses the discs and the nerves and so on. So a very good way to exit that spiral is to begin with stretch lying on the back. And here the back gets a gentle stretch, and so it eases that compression and lets the muscles begin to stretch out and relax as well. To do stretch lying on the back, you need a pillow under the head and about an inch or two under the shoulders. And then also a pillow under the knees. So we are going to bend the knees and place our feet about hip width, facing out. You want the knees to slightly externally rotate. Now you're going to come up onto your elbows, upper body onto your elbows, dig your elbows into the bed and down towards your feet. Place one vertebra down at a time. far away from the previous ones. And now reach behind your head and elongate your neck. Nice. And now, without losing that stretch in your back and in your neck, you're going to slide the shoulders back down. So you're going to just slide the shoulders back down. And then elongate the knees. That's great. Now, if you find that your neck is sort of left suspended midair, you might want to reach for the pillow and bunch it up under your neck a little bit. Don't want to go so far as to use a cervical roll, probably, but you don't want to leave your neck kind of suspended there. Is that comfortable?
Very.
Wonderful. Michael, you want to have the pillow a little bit more under your shoulders. That helps to flatten out your lower back. And also, if you find that your head is kind of dangling backwards, you want to add some additional pillow. It all depends on how much thoracic curve you have in your spine. More comfortable?
That's much better.
Great. All right. And if you find that your rib cage is kind of popping out, then you may have, fallen back into the habit of thrusting out the rib cage as you are lengthening. So come back up and bend your knees again. And you are going to place one vertebra down and only think about the next vertebra. If you think about the whole spine, sometimes it's tempting to kind of stick out your chest again. That's nice. Go down, down, and be vigilant here. There you go. And then as you're lengthening your neck, you also want to pay some attention to this area because it can start popping out again. Great. And when you're lowering your shoulders, again, hang on to this area with your awareness. And there. So you're preserving that length you've created in the spine and the neck as you lower your arms. And then you lower your legs and you turn out. Very nice. Comfortable?
Wonderful.
Oh, Eric, if you find that you end up with your pelvis super tucked after doing the stretch lying, then you might want to start over again. Bend your knees, come up onto your elbows, and this time you're going to hold on to the rim of your pelvis and kind of block it. So you're going to push it down to tip it forward, very nice, like that. And then you're going to pull away with your elbows. There'll be a space behind your sacrum. Put one vertebra down at a time, then the next one, next one, next one, very nice. And then reach behind your head, elongate the back of your neck, and then without losing that stretch, you're gently sending your shoulders down, and now you elongate your legs. Check if you're going to be more comfortable with a second pillow. I'm going to add that in, because sometimes if you have a tight psoas muscle, it feels better to have a second pillow. How's that?
Yeah, it's much better.
Better? Great. Okay. Now, keep in mind that you want to do this measure very gently because sometimes spasmed muscles behave like frightened animals. And if you yank on them, if you do something abruptly, they go into spasm more. So you have to coax them into elongating. So you just do a little bit, but the fact that you're going to be there possibly for very long, has a great effect. Only discipline yourself for about 5 minutes at the beginning of the night to do this. And if it feels comfortable, you can stay there. Otherwise, you switch around to get your sleep. And now let's review. Begin with 2 pillows, one under your head and shoulders and another under your knees. Bend your knees and place your feet about hip-width apart with your legs turned out. Prop your upper body onto your elbows and unroll your back onto the bed with extra length. Lengthen the back of your neck and slide your shoulders back down towards your feet. Straighten out your legs and relax. Jessica got into trouble bending over, picking up a child. This is the most common way that people get into trouble, bending over to do a task. And I think it's because in our culture, the only way we're taught to bend is to bend at the knees. Well, that isn't very practical for a lot of tasks. So what people do when they have to bend over is they round their backs. And that then compresses the discs, compresses the nerves, and creates muscle spasms and problems. So we are going to learn hip hinging. This is the way people have bent in some cultures for centuries. We're going to start with a little hip hinge. So begin with placing your feet about hip width apart and facing slightly outwards. Now we would like to externally rotate the knees as well. And there's that little maneuver in the feet where we pivot in the heel as the knee goes out. We're pivoting the heel in, the knee goes out, and that prepares the legs for receiving the pelvis. And now what we're going to do is do a little hip hinge just forward like that and then coming back up. So what we'd like to do is place your hand on the back and you're feeling for an even groove. You're going side to side, up and down, and hopefully you're starting with a healthy, shallow groove. And if not, then you rotate forward your rib cage till you find that the groove has a shallow baseline. And now you're going forward just a little bit, preserving that shape, and then coming back up. So practice like that. Mike, you want to make sure that you're not leading with the head and the shoulders as you go forward. So you're going forward, and you want to bend your knees a little bit. Bend forward, little, yeah, and then come back up. Great. And just make sure that your knees are soft as you go down. And as you're bending, you want to make sure that your neck stays tall. No need to look up. And as you go down, you anchor your rib cage strongly so that you're really going down as one unit, one piece, and then you come back up. Nice. Now, Eric, you don't want to lead with your head and your shoulders. And to prevent that happening, it can help to do a shoulder roll. Clasp your hands behind you. Imagine you're pushing up against something with your head, and now hinge at the hips and see, yeah, that's beautiful. Now you're maintaining the shape of your spine all through the head. Great. Coming back up and down. Good. Now we'll explore a somewhat deeper hip hinge. And for that, you want to start with a wider stance. Again, bean shape your feet so that your legs are externally rotated a little bit. And now you are going to lead with the pelvis, and all the rest of the back just follows. So you're maintaining this. Now, if you have trouble maintaining the back as one shape, I recommend starting off with a little inner corset. So you can imagine that high shelf and bar that you're going up and around to find the appropriate engagement of muscles here. That's nice. And then come down with your arms, keep all of these muscles. So now you're kind of protected. And now you can go down, and you would certainly be doing this if you were picking up anything with weight, although in the beginning I don't recommend that you carry significant weight like this. That's something you build towards. That is really beautiful. So now you're, yeah, and you want this to be very light. Back of the neck is tall, shoulders remain back, and your body is moving in one piece. When you come back up, you also want to remain in one piece. That's great. Okay, let's do a deeper hip hinge. And what you want to be sure of is that you hinge exclusively from the hip. Now, since, Mike, you don't have that much flexibility in the hamstrings and the external hip rotators, I recommend not going very far for now. You want to go only as far as you can go, keeping this shape. And if you had to go down further, then you would use your knees for that.
Okay.
Anchoring the rib cage as you go up and as you go down. Back of the neck tall. And for a deeper bend, you'd want to make sure your legs are externally rotated so your hips can really fit between, your pelvis can kind of nest between your legs. That's great. Now this is this acute angle that the Portuguese call a bird's beak bottom. And so you're settling, your torso kind of settles between your legs are wide, and there's room for your body between your legs. That's great. And then coming back up, not swaying, hanging onto the lower border of your torso here. Very nice. So if you find, Eric, that your pelvis is kind of lagging in the action, it can help to reach behind, grab your sits bones, and encourage them to come up. It also helps your shoulder blades stay back. And so that way your whole torso remains in one piece. That's great. And then you come back up. That's it. This can encourage a little bit more pelvic anteversion, but you only want to go as far as you can given your hamstring flexibility. So this makes bending something that's extremely good for you instead of something that's extremely bad for you.
Let's look at a couple of images. Here in Burkina Faso, you see a pair of women picking water chestnuts. They bend over for 7 to 9 hours a day to do this work, and they have no back problems whatsoever. No stenosis, no sciatica, no pain at all. This is what's truly normal. We need to raise our standards so that we don't accept arthritic change and degeneration and back pain as the norm. Let's review.
Place your feet about hip-width apart with your toes facing out and your legs somewhat externally rotated. Take a baseline reading of the groove over your spine and maintain it as your pelvis hinges on the heads of your femur. Keep a straight line all through the head, neck, and back as you hinge forward. When you run out of hamstring flexibility, settle your torso between your legs. And when you come back up, use your whole torso as one unit.
I'm back active at work, doing story time with kids, jumping around and hanging out with my friends. I'm back in, full swing in school and living life. And now I know how to do it carefully, thoughtfully, intentionally, move my back in ways that will not injure it, but strengthen it.
I ruptured 2 discs, and I saw a neurosurgeon who recommended that I get spinal fusion. I had all the really classic neurological sciatica symptoms where, I couldn't lift my foot or wiggle my toes and had numbness in my leg.
Eric's problems are very typical of someone who spends a long time sitting. In our culture, we start our people out in umbrella strollers and car seats that tuck their pelvis, and then they have that habit. They go into school and they're sitting with the tucked pelvis. And then when they go to their jobs, they're also sitting with the tucked pelvis. Now, pelvis is very important for the rest of the structure. If you situate the pelvis well, you have the option of being upright and relaxed. If you tuck the pelvis, you've got 2 options. You can either relax and you will slump, or you can be upright, but it takes tension in the low back. And both of those do harm. So, to learn how to stack sit with a well-positioned pelvis and a relaxed and upright torso, it takes a wedge. And a wedge can be something with some structure and with some softness on top so it's comfortable. So go ahead and position yourself to sit on your wedge in such a way that you are going to be anteverting your pelvis. So as you approach, it's very important to aim the sits bones for the edge of the wedge. That's nice. You don't want to sit too high up on the wedge because otherwise it's effectively just a taller chair. So you can scooch forward, come just to the edge of the wedge. That's great. If you're very tall, like Eric here, then it may be important to have your legs angled down. You know, you can put your foot under the chair or one foot out in front, and that way any tightness you have in the hamstring isn't getting in the way of your pelvis tilting forward. If you find that it's difficult to position your pelvis well, you may have to reach under your bottom, like lift one bottom at a time and bring your flesh back a little bit with your hands, one at a time or even both at a time. And another trick is to, once you've settled yourself, to kind of scooch forward so that you leave your buttock flesh wedged behind you. And that will encourage a little bit more tilting in the pelvis. Excellent. Now, ideally, you will be able to sit upright and be relaxed. And Eric, I think you're there. So the test of this is to put your fingertips in your low back and feel whether the groove is subtle. Don't want too much of a groove, going side to side and up and down. And if you find that it's a little bit excessive, you may have to use your internal oblique muscles a little bit, these rib anchor muscles, to keep this contour flush and this contour in your back correspondingly flat. Now you've got relaxed muscles in the back, and you can breathe in and feel that your back lengthens. You breathe in, your back lengthens, you breathe out, and it's settling back down. Nice. Now, if you have had a habit of sticking out your chest and you have a tight low back, you have to use these muscles additionally. Yeah. Breathe in and out. Good. In and out. Okay. Next, we are going to roll open the shoulders. So take one shoulder at a time, go a little forward, a little up, a lot back, and totally relax. And now with the other one, little forward, little up, lot back. And Allison, you want to be careful that as you do this, you don't thrust out the rib cage. You know, those of us who have habit of swaying the back, you know, will find that every time you do a shoulder roll, there's a tendency to revert to that. So you want to be a little bit watchful here as you're doing the shoulder roll. Great. And then last, you are going to elongate the back of the neck. And you can use various ways of doing this. You can pull on the back of your hair, and you can pull on your skull. Nice. You can push at the bottom of your skull. You can imagine you have something on your head and you're actually pushing up against an imaginary or real weight. And you can also just scout around your neck to see if there's any unnecessary tension that you're able to release. And just imagine you have a helium balloon in your head and you're letting it kind of float up. Again, if you've succeeded, you are going to find that as you breathe in, your back will lengthen. As you breathe out, it settles back down. You breathe in and you get length. You breathe out and you go back down. Very nice. One of the key things in this is to look for comfort. For some people, this is immediately amazingly comfortable. Like we're so used to having to work at being upright. And here you have the option to be upright and totally relaxed. So let's review. Place your sits bones on the edge of a suitable wedge. Arrange your legs so that your thighs can angle down. Now adjust your pelvis so that you're comfortable and stable. Anchor your rib cage as necessary. Roll open the shoulders. Elongate the back of your neck. Feel for an even groove over your spine and movement in your spine with the breathing. And then relax.
Things are great. My back feels amazing, and I'm able to do a lot of the things that I used to do. I went skiing for the first time this winter. I'm training for a half marathon, and I can play ultimate frisbee again. I couldn't be happier about it.
Every single one of my patients who suffers from back and neck pain, whom I've sent to Esther and have completed the Gokhale method, have benefited immensely from her program. Every single one of them has come back with positive feedback on, I can sit more comfortably, I can stand more comfortably, I can sleep now in the middle of the night without waking up with pain. And it's so simple, and they feel so empowered by being able to take care of themselves. It's wonderful.
I've dealt with back pain on and off for the last 30 years or so, and mostly on and off. And I've also come from a family that has a history of back pain. After surgery, about 2 years ago, both these problems increased significantly, both the migraines and the back pain.
A very important thing for Allison to learn was to antivert or tip her pelvis. She used to tuck her pelvis a great deal, and she needed to learn to relax the muscles here, tone up the muscles here, so that she defaulted to a position more like this. Very good way to learn to begin to do this is stretch lying on the side. So let's do that. We are going to use 2 pillows under the head. Go ahead and lie down. And then use 1 pillow between the knees and the ankles. For the pillows under your head, you want to make sure that they're really supporting your neck well. So you kind of pull them in and make it cuddly under your neck. You also want your face to be slightly facing downwards, facing into the bed rather than up to the sky. And you also want to grasp your hair and gently lengthen the back of it, allowing your chin to relax downwards. Very nice. Mike, if you take off your glasses, you'll have an easier time tilting your head down. Nice. And then you don't want the pillow to be under your shoulders, and you want to squinch up the pillows so that your head isn't left dangling down. Since you have broad shoulders, build it up a little more. Great. Next, for the legs, what we want to do is zigzag the legs. Not too bent, because if you bend the knees, then if the hamstring's tight, it's going to tuck your pelvis. And if you straighten out the legs too much, and if you have any tightness in the psoas muscle, that's going to arch your back. So you want them bent a little bit, zigzag, not too much, not too little. And you also want the ankles lined up with your hips and your shoulders. So Jessica, if you could bring your ankles back a little bit so that they're more lined up with your hips and shoulders, that's wonderful. Excellent. The next step is to somewhat exaggeratedly stick the bottom back. This is the only time I'll ask you to exaggeratedly stick your bottom back. What that does is it gives you a healthy L5-S1 curve, but it also gives you a sway in your back. And you can feel that with your fingertips. Feel your back, and you're going to, if you move your hands from side to side and up and down, then you can feel that there's a somewhat exaggerated groove there, which we now want to get rid of. And to get rid of that sway, we're going to move just the upper body kind of migrated forward on the bed. So you want to come off the mat just a little bit. Don't come up too high. You come up just a little bit off the bed, and you curve forward and reposition your rib cage on the bed. And now, if you feel with your fingertips, you can feel that you have flattened that excessive curve. So Eric, what I noticed is that your pelvis has tucked a little bit as you were curving forward. So you want to leave your pelvis behind you as you do this motion. So let's start over again. Taking the buttocks back, nice. And now we leave this in place and only move the upper body forward. That's great. And now you can feel that you still have your bottom out behind you, the same place it used to be when you were 2 years old. And you also have a flattened back. So we've got this J-spine back, which is what we wanted. Now we want a slightly longer J-spine. And to get that, we're going to jut out our arms and use this surface of the arm, use the hand, and lift ourselves up and shove down. Now, guard your shape as you add length into your back. Nice. Jessica, you want to be sure that you don't go back into a habitual sway as you're adding length. So let's do that lengthening action again, or curve forward first a bit to clear away that sway. See, now feel how nice and flat it is back there. And now you take your arm, this hand here, that arm stuck forward ahead of you a little bit, so that it gives you good leverage. So you can go tall, but keep the shape as you're going tall. This is tricky, especially for those of us who are used to swaying. It's very easy to return to a sway. So you have returned your back to having a very nice J-spine. This is the shape you used to have when you were 2 years old, and that the Greek statues have, and that your hunter-gatherer ancestors used to have. And now we're going to reorganize the head, because in coming forward, sometimes the head goes forward a little more. So you can grasp your hair and once again reposition the head. Elongate the back of your neck, allow your chin to angle down, roll open your shoulder, and rest the shoulder someplace comfortable. Could be your hip, could be your waist, like this is another option. If you have a partner, you can rest your arm on a partner or a pillow in front of you, pillow behind you. Or if you have a little pillow in your waist, that's also comfortable. And that kind of keeps your arms in place. Feel that? All right. Is everybody comfortable? Wonderful. So let's review. So zigzag your legs and line up the ankles with your hips and shoulders. Now slightly exaggeratedly stick your buttocks back. Arch the upper body forwards till the point that your back is flat. And now elongate your back without changing its shape. Elongate the back of your neck and roll open the shoulders, rest them, and relax. So we can explore some of the same elements in tall standing. We'll begin with the feet, which we would like to restore to their natural kidney bean shape that we used to have when we were 2 years old. To get there, you fasten the front of the foot to the floor. Pretend you have duct tape here, and you raise the heel slightly off the floor, bend the knee slightly, pivot the heel in as the knee goes out, and then reposition the heel on the floor. Once again, raise the heel, pivot the heel in as the knee goes out, and what you have now is a bean shape. You have restored a natural inner arch to your foot, and you can see also that you have cleared some of the pressure off this bunion area. And that's very helpful. Your toe can begin to migrate back home where it belongs. And it also, you will notice, if you bend your knees, that it restores normal architecture to your knees and even to your hip joints. Like you can now see, if you take an aerial view, you can see that your knees face the same way that your feet face. And that's great. You want your knees and feet aligned well. It will help to really bend your knees as you are doing this action. Otherwise, it's hard for this pivoting to happen. That's great. And you also want to make sure that it's the heel you're twisting in, not the front of the foot coming in. So fix the front of the foot and move the heel. You don't want to do it too exaggeratedly either, because otherwise you're going to find that throws the weight to the outside of the foot, and we don't want to be walking around like this. So adjust at the ankles so that the weight isn't too much to the outside, but we certainly don't want it on the inside of the foot. Notice that the feet are facing slightly out, about 10 or 15 degrees. That's normal for our species as well. And the third thing you want is to make sure that the weight is settled mainly on the heels, not on the front of the foot.
bring the hips forward and back. And as you come back, you have to allow the upper body to come forward, because otherwise you'll just topple over backwards. That's nice. So somewhere in that trajectory, you find a place where most of your weight is on your heels and you feel equilibrated there. Now we're going to do a little squat, leaving the weight on the heels. And what this facilitates is that your pelvis can now kind of tip to the floor. Your pubic bone can kind of drop to the floor. And now you come out of the squat, but stop short of locking your knees and stop short of locking your groin, and leave your pelvis tipped as you just had it. The reason you want to have the groin soft is that that is the major thoroughfare for circulation to and from your legs. If you park your hips forward, now you've blocked a lot of the circulation to your legs. So you want that soft like your elbow crease can be soft, not locked like that. So you've come up, and make sure that your belt line is not horizontal, that is somewhat tipped forward. So let's do the squat again. And then you come up and you leave your pelvis tipped forward. You don't want to come back up and tuck your pelvis again, go back to a habitual position. You want to squat, come back, and your belt line is going to remain tilted down towards the front.
Okay.
That's great. Okay. It's looking very good. Now we're going to go to the upper body, and we're going to rotate the rib cage forward. If you like, you can use your fists to make that happen. And then you roll open your shoulders. Very nice. Forward, up and back. And notice that if you don't be careful, then when you do that, it can re-sway your back. So you want to pay attention to your rib cage as you're rolling open the shoulders. Also, through the next step, which is to elongate the back of the neck. So you can do that in any of your favorite ways. You can grasp your hair, you can pull on your head, you can push on your head, and then may want to re-establish your shoulder position. And if you've succeeded, you're going to notice that when you breathe in, your whole back can once again move up and down very easily. So breathing in and breathing out, you will experience lengthening in the spine. When you breathe out, it settles back down. So breathe in and the spine lengthens. Breathe out and it settles back down. Breathing in and out. Great. And so what you're getting then is a kind of massage for the back. You know, every time you breathe in and out, there's circulation, there's rehydration of the discs happening, and you're restoring excellent health to your spine. Another advantage of having your pelvis anteverted is that you now put your buttock muscles in a position of mechanical advantage, so that as you walk, you can actually be using those muscles with every step you take. So Allison, who used to have a flat butt, no longer has a flat butt anymore because she's been working her buttock muscles with every step she takes. With all this good alignment, you're not straining your neck muscles, and that's going to help things like migraines and tension headaches, which is now less of a problem for you as you continue to migrate towards this more elongated structure. That's looking so nice. Okay, let's review. Bean shape the feet and have them face out about 10 or 15 degrees. Place most of your weight on your heels. Little squat coming out of the squat, soft knees, soft groin, and pelvis somewhat anteverted. Anchor the rib cage. Roll open the shoulders and elongate the back of the neck. And relax.
Over the last 2 years, I have had almost no migraines, and also practically no back issues, really no back pain at all. Occasionally I'll feel some tension in my upper back, and I will do some strengthening exercises and just pay more attention to how I'm using my body.
We are marvelously designed creatures, born with inherent grace and strength. We have evolved to sit, walk, run, jump, climb, carry, even dance without pain. If we respect our primal architecture, our bodies can heal spontaneously and serve us well for close to a century. Indeed, there are many populations where most people live pain-free into old age. Why not you?
In this program, you've seen a few examples of people who got out of trouble by making a few simple changes. They restored their normal length and the J shape in their spines, and they learned to engage their muscles to support this natural structure. With a little bit of patience, you can learn these simple techniques too. Back pain is something that belongs in a museum. The next time you have pain in your back or your neck or some other part of your structure, don't blame things that you can't readily change.
Ask what you might be able to do to help your body. There's no need to feel helpless and hopeless. Pain can be your friend. It tells us something is wrong. And if we don't just squelch it with painkillers, it's there to guide us and help heal us.
Once you know how to read it, you can take action. And if you've overcome back pain, you're also averting a host of other degenerative changes that we've come to believe are natural, but really aren't. Respect your primal architecture. Your body is there for you. We just need to learn how to get out of our own way.
Back pain, the Primal Posture Solution, was funded in part by Deborah E. Atticott, Ann Wojcinski, William Fenwick, Kathleen McCarthy, and Rick and Roberta Rudman.